Hey everybody, welcome to Surface Level, a show that takes a look at society's expectations and rejects the ones we don't see it for. All from the perspective of three Black queer best friends. I'm one of your hosts, Jordan, and today, Tony, Damon, and I are discussing the sometimes silent division of the gays and the lesbians. Do we believe combining all groups within the LGBTQ plus umbrella is helpful or hurtful? How do Black queer women fit within the larger fight for equality? This is No Lesbians Allowed. No Lesbians Allowed. So today we're discussing a topic that I can honestly say that us as a group, we haven't really done a lot of conversations alone. And it's the relations between gay men and lesbian women.
Yes. This is going to be a good one, I think. And very interesting.
I think so too. And the reason why I think it's going to be good because I think that we have a very, very exciting guest today. She is a diversity and inclusion expert with years upon years of experience. Armas-Edwards is in the studio today. But before we speak with her, we want to play a little game with the three of us. Okay?
All right. Let's get into it.
All right. So today, obviously, we're discussing our relationships and our relations with lesbian women. So I thought it would be fun to do a little trivia of some prominent lesbians in history, or queer Black women in history. Sorry, not just lesbians.
Okay.
That's a spoiler for some of the trivia.
Oh.
Okay, so the first one. All right. This 1920s Black entertainer was once the highest paid entertainer in Europe. She identified as bisexual and has entanglements that include the Mexican artist Frida Kahlo. Is it Josephine Baker or Dorothy Dandridge?
Oh, well, I know Dorothy Dandridge is known for an entanglement. But I think what was the first name?
You said Europe, so I'm gonna go with Josephine Baker.
I was gonna say Josephine Baker just because I remember that Beyonce performance where she did a tribute. Mm-hmm. Yes, let's say Josephine.
Josephine Baker. Beyonce was what sold it for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. The answer is Josephine Baker.
These gays will make anything.
Yes.
Beyonce.
Listen,
Anything.
look at God.
Look at that.
Look.
I knew the Europe was going to give it away.
Not to Tony, apparently.
Well, right.
It was Beyonce. And a banana
All it
skirt.
took was Beyonce and a banana skirt.
Yeah, that's what came to mind.
Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm so glad Fran is here.
All right. In 2019, Lori Lightfoot became the first openly lesbian African-American woman to be elected mayor of a major city in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Before entering public office, she worked as what? An attorney or a social worker?
Oh, I'm going to say an attorney, just because I feel like lesbians they snatch the girls up, get them together. They give a strong argument.
They state their case.
They state the case. They cite the case. So that's gonna be my answer.
Okay.
Damon.
Damon.
I'm gonna say social worker.
Okay, she was an attorney.
Look, see. Look.
She graduated from the University of Chicago. That's where she got her law degree from. And she said that the reason why she entered public office is because she wanted to advocate for African Americans. And she talked about how one of her family members were killed by a member of the KKK in the 1920s, and just talking about her personal experience, or her brother's personal experience with the legal system. So
Okay.
that was her reason for sort of switching gears and going into public office.
Yes, I love the background.
My home city.
We have a lot of Chicago trivia questions, don't we?
It's
We
a
do.
great city.
It is a great city. All right. In a 2018 Rollin' Out article, singer, songwriter, and actor Janelle Monáe came out as queer.
Mm-hmm.
During the early years of her career, she wore a suited uniform to convey what message? Was it to pay homage to Black people who were stereotypically portrayed in minstrel shows wearing black and white suits? Or was it to pay homage to the uniforms her father and mother had to wear at their jobs?
The uniforms our parents had to wear.
I think I'm gonna go with that too, just because it's a personal touch, and that seems like a Janelle Monáe, she's very thoughtful and intentional. So
I'm just going with it because I know the answer.
oh, see, Damon knows, but I don't.
Right. It's just like, you sound confident. I think I'm going to go with that too.
Listen, he's just mad because I'm getting most of this right.
Off
You get
of my
residual
knowledge.
points.
I'm winning today.
Yes, it was Janelle Monáe paying homage to her parents. Her mother was a janitor and her father was a truck driver. So
Cute.
she was paying homage to the sacrifices that they made by wearing a uniform every day to create opportunities for her.
Look at that.
Look at that. Okay, so I just watched a comedy special yesterday starring Wanda Sykes. So we know her as an esteemed comedian, and she came out as lesbian in 2008 at a same-sex marriage rally. She's also a proud alumnus of which HBCU? Is it Spelman College or is it Hampton University?
Oh my goodness, that's a tough one.
I'm going to go with Hampton.
I'm gonna say Spelman, just to be different.
Okay. It's Hampton. You know, I feel like this is rigged. Are you looking at my notes, Damon?
No. I
kind of figured it might have been Hampton, but Spelman would be funnier because she's a lesbian. So that's why.
So she went to the Institute. She went to Hampton University. She majored. No, Hampton University. We love that. She majored in marketing, actually.
Nice.
And she actually pledged AKA at Hampton.
Really?
Yes, I think I knew that.
You
Yeah.
learn something new every day.
So obviously the winner of this is
Tony.
Sure.
Me.
Yeah.
If you close one ear and don't listen out the other.
Actually, it's a tie. It's a tie.
It's a tie. Okay.
It's a tie. Both
well,
of you got one
let's
wrong.
get Kamala in here to break the tie.
Does it count when she steals my right answers?
I didn't steal.
I'm just delivering the questions.
Listen, I don't got to beat you to cheat. Well, what's that phrase they say?
I don't know.
I don't got to cheat you to beat you.
Get through it. Okay.
I got through it.
You
Whew.
found it.
Lloyd, I didn't think it was going to come quick enough.
Ooh,
All the
didn't.
kids do is lie. Anyway, so moving on, I think that let's start with the place of like our broader queer community. I think that often we think about us being an LGBTQ plus, et cetera, community, and do we think that grouping or that umbrella of ideas is helpful or harmful to us as a group? Tony, let's start with you.
So in terms of that question, I tend to think that lumping any segment of people into one group is never a good idea. It's just like you can't lump all Black people into a group. We are not a monolith, right? We say that all the time. And so I think it's a little dangerous, and everyone should have the space to be an individual and not be boxed into what society's expectations are. That's part of what this podcast is about, is rejecting those expectations that society puts on us. But when you put everyone into a bucket, it suggests some sort of shared experience, but that becomes problematic or can become problematic and has the potential to ignore areas of inequalities and discrimination from within that group. And also, I read something that talked about how community belonging is not a given just because people who share the same gender or sexual identity, that doesn't mean that, you can just lump them into that same group and call it a thing. And this is why the notion of like LGBT community can be problematic, because if you don't feel like you're in that community, then, it can feel exclusionary, I think. The article also argued that it's a bit like saying there's a brown-eyed community and a blonde, community, which is it's funny, but it's not like an actual thing. It's more so like those are myths. But what I do like that we've done lately and that I'm really leaning into and enjoy is the fact that we've brought back and we've reclaimed the word queer. We use it on the podcast. I think a lot of people are saying it a lot more these days. And originally the word meant strange or peculiar, and it came to be used more pejoratively, I think, against those with same-sex desires. And I think that now we're owning it, and I love that for us. So I will say that.
She's a queer queen.
I'm a queer queen. I'm a queer queen. But yeah, Jordan, what do you think?
I have a slightly different take on it. I think that civil rights for queer people, I think, and the grand scheme of civil rights movements is still kind of young. I think that, some historians will say that the earliest instances or the earliest organized gay rights or queer rights movements started in the 20s, and some will say the 40s. And I think, I think there's power in having the momentum of bringing us together. I think that if we sort of broke it out and did separate things and didn't group everybody together, I feel like it could potentially slow down the momentum and make change take a lot longer. So I do think that at the onset, it was very helpful to be grouped together. But I think now, as our society is becoming more informed and we're learning, to use the correct pronouns, and we're learning what the meaning of these different words are, and we're learning the nuances between the communities, I think it's probably time that we start giving these subgroups their own individualized support. But I do think that there's strength in numbers, and I do think that having it grouped together at the onset was probably necessary and needed.
I kind of get where you're going with that. Like, in certain ways, maybe for like legislation or stuff like that, it's probably more helpful, right? But then when you get into the nitty gritty of just on a personal level and how people feel, everyone doesn't feel like they belong, and also
correct,
right? So I there are benefits, and then there are things that aren't so. I guess
completely.
There are things that aren't so like inclusionary there. So, Damon, what do you think?
I don't know. Like, sometimes I have a hard time with it because in some ways it feels like a reaction it feels like heterosexual people and heteronormative things are being placed upon a community of people. Sometimes to me it is felt that you are not cisgendered and heterosexual, so therefore you are other, and all of you others go over there together. And I think that sometimes it feels like it diminishes the experiences of the various intersections of our identities. Me being a gay man, I know nothing about the experiences of Black queer women, or not know nothing, because we can research, we can learn, but like I haven't lived that experience. The conflation of sexuality and gender identity, that to me, even through being a young queer person that was still figuring myself out versus being a little older now, that's been the thing that has bothered me the most about the umbrella term, is that sexuality and gender identity are so different. And I've always wondered, like, why are all the things just lumped in together? And to me, it's always felt like you're just an other. Like, you're not straight, you're not cisgender, so therefore you're in that bucket of like the rainbow umbrella over there. So I think Jordan made a really great point. There is strength in recognizing that the world views us as other, and working together to find things that we can push forward together as far as legislation, et cetera. But sometimes it feels like the individual experiences are being diminished or not viewed as valuable and as unique as they can be. So that's the thing that I would say bothers me from time to time. Maybe to focus it a bit more about the experiences around gay men and our relationships with women. I think that not obviously, but a lot of times you'll see gay men and you have your ladies, and the ladies have their gays, and
yes, they do.
That's been kind of portrayed often in media, like the gay best friend, et cetera. And you don't see it as much with relationships either in our lives or in media portrayed between gay men and lesbian women. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? Do you think that, like, how do you feel about your girls, and why do you feel like we don't see the counterpoint between us and lesbian women as often? Tony?
Well, I mean, when it comes to like my relationship with lesbian women, so funny enough, I think that the gay gene runs in my family because one of my first cousins is a lesbian, and we grew up really close together. And I was always a little bit more, I guess, had more feminine qualities, and she was more of like a tomboy, and was into basketball and stuff like that. And so, as it turns out, she was into girls and I was into boys. Go figure. But I think that, and I think she had a little bit more of a tougher time coming out, surprisingly, like to her mother, my aunt. And I don't think that it was as easy for her mother to accept it. But I think that, her mother, I felt like she kind of pretended that it wasn't even a thing from the beginning. But she came around though, which is good, and I'm glad that they have a good relationship now. But other than that, I wasn't really exposed to lesbian women until maybe I started working at a restaurant when I was in college, and I was working at Red Lobster. And funny enough, I think almost all of the women that worked there, up to the general manager, they were all lesbians.
You have so many stories about working at this Red Lobster.
Oh my God.
It is the most interesting Red Lobster in America.
Baby.
That Red Lobster is legendary. I went there
Baby.
when DJ was working there with you.
I'm telling you, I think all of my roommates worked there. It was one of those spots that it was like Cheers. Everyone knew your name. And you could have filmed a show. But it was so funny because, I those were some of my fondest memories, and they were all so cool. All the lesbians that I worked with were so cool, and that was kind of like my, I guess, closest relationship and most fondest memories with that group. And I think it was very strange. Just that's my only real recollection or just experience. But also just a quick story. So one time the promoters here in New York City, the gay clubs, they tried to do a thing where it was like lesbian and gay night together. And when I say that hit different, it was just, it felt so weird. But first of all, I think I felt like some of the lesbians in the room had more masculine energy than I did. And I was like, they're going to go home with all the boys. Like, what's going on here? Like, it's a competition. I'm like, I ain't set up for this.
Don't nobody want to take your man, girl.
But no, I mean, I think and I also kind of always felt like, where are all the lesbians in New York City? We live here and we see a lot of gay men, gay black men, gay white men, but it's like, where are the lesbians outside of the club?
Home with their wives.
Home with their wives.
Doing adult things.
They're married.
Unlike us.
They are definitely married with children. And I wish I had that. It's real ghetto over here. So
somebody would like to get Tony pregnant.
Jordan, how about you?
All right, we're cutting Tony off.
Come on, Michael.
So, ironically, I have had not a lot of like very deep relationships with women that identify as lesbian. I've had a lot of friendships with women that identify as queer, which has always been interesting to me because I've always felt like women were giving a little bit more grace with the ability to sort of move along the spectrum. Because at least from my personal opinion,
so grace from society or grace from like family?
Grace from society. I think that there's something in the media that sort of glamorizes women who may be attracted to women. Whereas I'm not really sure that gay men are extended that same flexibility. I think that, if gay men or if men decide to participate with men, I think it's like, you're gay.
You're not bisexual.
And you aren't really given the space to sort of explore that all the time. So that's been very interesting with for me. I feel like I've had a lot of experiences with women who identify as queer or on the spectrum, but I haven't had a ton of experience with women who identify as lesbian. But the experiences that I do have with lesbian women have been like some of my favorite people. I just feel like they got it. And honestly, I have this, I have one lesbian friend where we just saw each other at Howard. It was unspoken. We never talked about it. And we talked about, we came out to each other, after graduating and then moving out of DC.
Right. Because if anyone can tell a gay man, it's a lesbian woman.
Hello?
We see each other.
But I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell.
Well,
I knew for a fact that she knew that I was, doing my thing. But
women are just a touch smarter than us guys.
I couldn't tell. But my experiences have been great. But I always wonder, like, where are they? Like, I came across this article a couple of weeks ago saying that there's less than 100 lesbian bars in New York City.
Oh.
Like, think about that. Like, New York City, where there's thousands of bars, restaurants, places to commune, less than 100. And even when we think about places like the Gayborhood, like Hell's Kitchen, like, how many places do we know of that are unique to lesbian?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I feel like it's one of those things that I feel like I don't have as much exposure to. I went to one lesbian party,
Yeah.
but that's it. And I feel like it should be more.
I wonder also too if it's because we're not looking for that we don't see it. This just a thought that I had as you were saying that, because I'm like, I'm not looking for the lesbian, like the move for.
I mean, but you ain't got to be looking for a gay moving. It'll just fall on your head, child.
Right.
So
no, that's valid. That's valid.
So,
Damon, what about you? What's your experience been?
Lacking. Yeah, like we all have our girls. Like we talk about this. We got our Charmaine, Carla, Tiffany. Hope y'all are listening. And like they're all straight. And I think it's come out of, for me at least, the experience of when I was younger being in heterosexual environments and just trying to fit in. And like as I've journeyed more deeper into being a queer person, like those women have continued in that journey with me without judgment. Yeah. So therefore they're there, and the gays love a pretty girl. So I love them. But it's funny, like I look at, it's like you look at a lot of social media and then like you'll see like we were joking earlier before we started recording just about like the lesbian women and like being in relationships and being serious about them. And I look at all the lesbian weddings. I'm like, this is so chic. Oh, child, in those gay weddings, they all are gold, and everybody's in Atlanta being tacky.
OMG. Oh, Atlanta. Poor Atlanta.
Poor Atlanta. No. And I always be like, I want to go to the lesbian wedding. It looks so chic and classy.
Because you know the lesbian, they plan their weddings out of the womb. It's like, all right, I'm getting married. I want my eggs cracked.
Shut up. Ciao. We got to move on.
Yeah. I mean, but I think this might be a good spot to introduce our guest for today. So we have a very special guest who happens to be one of the smartest people I've had the pleasure of meeting. And make no mistake, she can read you down and gather you with the best of us. Dr. Frances Armas-Edwards is an educator, organizational strategist, and leadership coach who supports leaders and teams with realizing their full potential. She is an equity, diversity, and inclusion expert, currently sharing her talents with Google, where she focuses on helping every Googler learn and practice behaviors and skills required to make Google's culture inclusive. So today, we want to welcome Fran, as I like to call her, to our surface level family.
Ooh, welcome.
Yay. Hi, boys.
We're so excited to have you.
I know.
She's like, why do I have to suffer through the beginning of this conversation?
The way she's looking, she has so much to say.
Okay.
She's taking notes.
Taking notes.
She's about to dress us down.
Do you feel red?
We talked about the attorney thing. I ain't like that. All right. So, Frances, can I call you Fran?
Yes.
Okay. So we like to start our interviews off in a lighthearted way.
Okay.
So that our listeners can get to know who you are, and we can just sort of like have a little fun time.
Can't wait.
Y'all can't see the shoulder roll that I'm doing right now. So we're going to play a little game of this or that.
Okay.
Starting now. City or the beach?
Beach.
Movie or theater?
That's a tough one for you.
Bad rom-com movie.
Ooh, okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
A fixer-up house under budget or a dream house just within budget?
A fixer-upper under budget.
Okay. What is your love language? And for the listeners who don't know what they are, words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, or physical touch?
Acts of service.
Me too.
I think that's been everybody's answer.
Yes.
No, we had one person that was Dorian was words of affirmation.
Oh.
He likes to be told
Told he's pretty.
Exactly. The acts of service. I love people who love acts of service. We're on the same page. Work from home or work in the office?
I work at Google in the office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wine or cocktail?
Cocktail.
What spirit?
Bourbon.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Meet Damon.
A woman after my own heart.
That is funny.
18-hour flight or 18-hour train ride?
Train ride.
Okay.
Oh.
Big party or small gathering?
Small gathering.
And lastly, earth-shattering romance with uncertainty or even killed affection with stability?
So I'll take both. I'll have the even killing relationship with stability with myself, and then I'll take that big romance that's a leap with someone else.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right
Cool.
now. That was fun.
Yeah.
Learn a little
That was
bit
a
more
good
about
last question.
Fran. That was a good last question. Very interesting. She was like, I'll take both. You know, I deserve
Won't be choosing.
I deserve nice things.
Yes.
Know the girl.
Fran, I hope you were listening to the first half of this conversation, because it's us gays talking about the lesbians, and that's your community. So who better than to school us and someone like you who can come in and really get us together? But by nature of us being Black, queer men, and most of our circles consisting of Black queer men, we often hear coming out stories, right, from the male perspective. So on a personal note, we just wanted to start with hearing like what your coming out story was like as a Black woman.
Yeah. So I love that question because it's packed with bias.
Ooh.
I think that there's this expectation that you have to come out. And I think that for many queer women, you just were you all along. And then you got into a relationship. And so there wasn't this this adolescence of queerness that I think so many of my dear friends who identify across the LGBTQ spectrum have. And so, yeah, I moved to New York City and I was already secretly dating a girl in undergrad. And I knew there was a really important bifurcation in my life with my personal life and my professional life. And so, yeah, I didn't really come out. I just showed up with a wife one day, kind of.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a little strange.
How was the reception? Did people, friends, family around you, how did they react?
So I think there were a ton of reactions. I think that a lot of people, there's this possession of women and our stuff that comes along with stories that we tell each other about what's socially acceptable for women to have the freedom to do without announcing it to others. And I think that that's really about how we want to own women. Mm-hmm. And so folks expect you to announce when you go together, announce when you've moved to that place. And they want you to announce in a bunch of different ways. Maybe it's they want to know where you're spending the weekend, or maybe it's they actually want an invitation to a wedding that they are not helping pay for. We have lots of expectations, and I think we play them out. And at the core, they're all about owning women. And so I just opted out a ton of those. And it was easy because I grew up kind of looking like the ugly duckling. And it just made it really easy to be invisible and focused. Wow. And I think that has defined me and defined my experience as a woman, as a queer person. Yes. And so there was less of coming out because, yeah.
No, I mean, oh my goodness. Well, but I think that's important for us to hear, and just that's a different perspective that I don't think I have personally, been exposed to.
Same.
So thank you so much for just being vulnerable and sharing that with us.
Yeah, totally.
But when we think about media, right? Media often portrays, it kind of imitates life. And we've noticed how it portrays and depicts the relationship of heterosexual women and their gays, kind of like what Damon was talking about earlier. And a couple of examples off the top of my head that come to mind are Nene Leakes and Tamar Braxton, who have their gays, or Kathy Griffin, Kelly Ripa, who have Andy Cohen and Anderson Cooper. I mean, Kathy Griffin is no longer friends with them due to, what happened back when, way back when, but let's not get on that topic. But we want to know, and also thinking about Will and Grace, one of my favorite shows when I was coming up, like the straight woman with the gay bestie. But what do you think that gay men and lesbian women have a lesser bond? Like, what is that about that we don't see that?
Yeah. So what I love about what's been bubbling through this conversation is that it's a clear theme of invisibility and mirrors. And you're kind of saying in this question that you're asking, like, what up with like seeing myself in my like queer women, like that. I don't get that mirror image to me. And I think that the media is often a mirror or a window. And for a long time for gay folks, the media was a window. You looked at other stuff, not yourself. And then when it became more mirror images in the media, the first images that we see are the ones that most closely align to the way that power plays out in society. So first we saw white gay folks. We saw white men. We saw white women. Eventually we would see black gay folks. But think about how long it took to see that representation and it actually be okay. And it's not something weird or that person, or we're not acknowledging the person honoring the feminine in their personality. Instead, we're just like, they're kind of the butt of a joke. Think about how long it took for that to happen. I think on Apple TV, Laverne Cox and some other people have done an incredible job with this program. Is it called Out? What's the name of this program?
It might be.
I know what you're talking about. Is it Netflix or is it Apple TV?
I think it's on Apple TV. It's Disclosure.
Disclosure on Netflix is the Laverne Cox thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw the title for that, but I actually
I watched a few episodes about trans representation and gay representation on Apple TV, and I thought it was excellent. I'll find out the name of it. Sorry, I'm not prepared.
You are more than prepared, honey.
But yeah, I think that that's a huge thing, and I also just want to think about this theme of invisibility. Like, what does it do or create for whom that some people are invisible? And what does it mean if we don't notice that some people are invisible? So what I hear you all saying is kind of like, I noticed this invisibility happening. Like, and what does it structurally mean? Like, let's be really honest about what it means to be like a woman in the world, but you want to opt out of the patriarchy to such a degree that your entire life, even your sexuality, aligns with that. Because that's what to be a lesbian is, if we're really honest about what it is. So you're opting out of the patriarchy in the most violent way you possibly can. You're working, you're going to get married to a girl. You and your girl family are going to take over the world with your vaginas and not need men. And how fucking dare you? And that's what they've got going on. And you're like, I wonder how come they're not at the bar.
Yeah.
And so...
Because we got our shit together.
Well, it's less about having our shit together. And I think that that's a really important conversation for us to have. Like, how does intersectionality impact folks in our community? We know that Black trans women are astronomically more likely than their LGBTQIA counterparts to be the victim of violence. We know they're much more likely to be homeless, to be underemployed, unemployed. So the fact that we don't have bar ownership from one of the most expensive places in the country to start a business and the riskiest place to start a business, that there is no capital backing them, that there is nobody that makes sure that when we do have a lesbian bar, it stays open for more than 3 or 4 years and places to go and places to hang out. Then we can talk about having enough women who have the kind of disposable income that makes a bar like that live and breathe. And, you know, that we're doing more than living just enough for the city. And so I think that's really important to understand, because it's not just an accidental invisibilization. And there's a lot to be gained when we have strong coalition and partnership across lines of difference. When we see some sameness. And I think that's to be honored. And the folks that started this movement honored that. I also think that, you know, I pulled out these playing cards because the Gayglers, which is the gay...
Fran brought a game to us. She said, y'all like games?
It's this is the Pride at Google is the employee resource group at work. And they sent us a care package because it was COVID and things have been really shitty, to be frank.
Wow.
And in it, there was this deck of cards, with directions for how to play Texas Hold'em. Hello, one of the skills I've picked up over the pandemic that I'm not ashamed of. Okay? So, and in this deck of cards, they like show you people who were incredibly important to the world who identify as gay. And for me, I really noticed those folks who were intersectionals, like Marsha P. Johnson, who's Black and also a trans person, you know. And so to understand not only the power that they've had for us and for our successively increased access to freedom. So what it means that Marsha P. Johnson started a riot on 14th Street around the corner from where my Google office is now. To me, it's that I now live in New York City and I'm married to my wife and my name is on my daughter's birth certificate. And that's the legacy of that freedom. And I think coalition building is really important, just like Rustin Baird and Ella Baker were such good friends. And they ran the civil rights movement and changed our country forever. And so I think there's an opportunity and connection. And so it's worth exploring. How might we be more connected?
Well, Fran, I'm really curious when we talk about the idea of like feminism, right? Because we've seen a lot of Black women sort of distance themselves from the movement a little bit because they felt like the movement no longer prioritizes their unique challenges. You know, Malcolm X said that the most disrespected, unprotected, and neglected person in America is the Black woman. So from your perspective and your experience as a Black queer woman, what is your relationship with the broader LGBTQ plus community, that the civil rights movement, and within that?
Yeah, so I want to pause at the first part of your question because I think that, and the framing is so important. That's 1,000% right. I've never identified as a feminist. Always the womanist because I learned about the difference a long time ago. But I think that being pushed out really happened despite Black women asking to partner with white women. And we see what has happened to a movement where white women are in charge. They consistently showed us that they need assistance with making great decisions for this country, for themselves, for the way we raise and educate our children and families. And so I think there's something to be gained for them to be in community with other folks. Like, we're going to figure out what's up there, you know? And that didn't work out when Gloria Steinem, like, tried to stand up what is now modern day feminism. The show, is it on Amazon Prime, Mrs.?
Ms. America?
Ms. America.
Oh my goodness.
Mrs. America has an episode that covers this so well on the nose.
I loved
the Shirley Chisholm.
I was
It was strong
with that show.
It was strong.
The Shirley Chisholm episode.
Yeah. That episode with the Black lesbian quitting Gloria Steinem.
Oh, yeah.
That's...
She's just like, you're not happy here? No,
Like,
no, ma'am.
Hello, like, you don't acknowledge anything that I have to deal with outside of what your struggles are uniquely. Like, mine don't exist. I'm just supposed to rally behind the shared ones that we have, and leave the rest of them at the door, which I feel like is probably what's happening a lot.
Yeah. And so she didn't stop fighting for what she needed. She had reasons to fight, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And if we can't figure out that we have the same enemy, then what are we launching towards together?
Hello?
If it's only, so I think that's really important for sure.
I think it's the same way as like a gay man, like a Black gay man. You think about like gay marriage, hoorah. It's just like, child, that was for the white gays. Like that like, I'm trying not to get...
we need to have a conversation about how y'all boys don't believe you can get married because I think somebody's broken your fantasies. And I think we need to unpack it.
It's not that.
Why y'all don't want a fairy tale ending?
No, we want.
I think we
I'm
want...
working towards
I
that.
think we want the fairy tale. I would say that in my experiences with white gay men, they don't even understand the concept of like, I'm trying not to get killed in the street when I'm outside.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
just
I think,
the intersectional.
yeah, and yes, and I think
Got
that it's just like they want to, not that, and I don't want to create a us and they thing, but I think that there's this celebration, and like I always take a lot of my experiences back to my experience in New York Gay Men's Scores, where I'm one of 20 Black men in a 300-person organization. And it's just like, this is something for us to celebrate. But I'm like, guys, we're talking right now about like me hopefully not getting mistaken for something else and being shot down in the streets. But you don't want to be a part of that journey. That journey helps me get to the gay marriage.
That's right.
We didn't overcome in 2000 and 15, I'm sorry, I can't think of the exact year. We didn't overcome that.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part I have.
And those are like the terms of you for being in a coalition with them. Because otherwise, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
We're not actually friends if we don't have the same enemies. And that's I think, really important.
Right.
Yeah.
But so, Fran, here's we're gonna pivot right now because I think this is a fun sort of topic right now that we have discussed, like me, Jordan, Damon, and we think that in our gay community, right, in the gay community, we have these names and these subsets and these genres, if you will, and terminology.
I'm so nervous.
For am I giving suspense here where I'm going? But think about it. All right, so for the gays, we have we call it the trade, for instance. I'm sure you've heard the trade before. You've heard.
Are you guys gonna give me like a quick and dirty rundown of all the words?
I'm not giving you a quick and dirty, but I just want to say the trade. We have butch queen, we have femme, we have bears. There's this whole list of things, and we were curious, what are the lesbians? What are the terms on your side of the spectrum, and what's the proper term? School us on what because I've heard things like lipstick lesbian and this and that, and I'm like, is this appropriate? Should I be saying this? So can you just
So here's the thing. I don't know what are the latest entries in the dictionary, and I think that's actually important. Because I let people identify themselves to me when we're in a relationship where it's appropriate to do so. And that's, I think, really important. And if folks do or don't want to be called a lipstick lesbian, they, if you can have a conversation with them about it, then I think then it's okay to call them that and be wrong. If you can't have a conversation with that person, don't call them shit. Call them by their name or by a respectful pronoun, and let's keep it moving. And I think that's how we build that coalition, because you don't start the relationship with a myth, with something like icky in the water, And but I do know definitely people are butch femme. They're high femme. They're
high femme.
Yeah, butch femme, high femme.
Yeah.
What's high femme? How did that?
I'm not high femme, for instance.
Okay.
Because I'm wearing Ugg boots.
Okay. So if you were wearing
if I were high femme,
stilettos.
when I parked the car, I would have put on a proper shoe.
Okay.
And I would have worn my proper shoe into my speaking engagement.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not full committed. I have the chicken's commitment to breakfast, not the pig as far as being high femme. And so special occasions, I'll go there, but not every day. I need comfort. Yeah.
High femme. That's fun. I like that.
Right. Very interesting, but I've never heard that.
I haven't either.
Oh, yeah. High femme's also philosophical, which I guess all these terms are, but it's also
I feel high femme, but not in the sense of high femme.
Here the gays go, taking things away.
I'm not on a proper shoe to go anywhere.
If you saw the gesture.
No, but it also is what comes with that. That means, you know what I mean?
Right.
I need the car to drop me off outside.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to drop me off at 9 o'clock and pick me up at 9:15
There's some
sharp.
things that come with being, that kind of,
Jordan's high femme.
yeah.
Jordan actually is high femme.
Right. I'm looking at you. I'm like, tell me more.
Jordan's actually a high femme.
I'm like, I'm not
lesbian
really
woman.
trying to but we'll see.
But so Fran.
Some of us have decorum, and that's okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
As soon as you said acts of service, I was just we gonna get along just fine.
Jordan is actually a black female lesbian.
Right. Actually. But so Fran, as being a lesbian would have it, you are married. And you're a mom. Go figure.
Yes.
You're a brand new mom, which is so beautiful. And as you being a brand new mom and being a black queer mom, we just want to know, what is that like for you? What's it like being a new parent and being two queer parents raising a child? And again, I know you and your wife just bought a house, so if you need a pool boy, I said I'm available because it's very ghetto over here. So
Any excuse to get into a Speedo. Any excuse.
and I can do things for you guys. Just throwing it out there.
Well, we're looking for childcare, so let's.
Child, don't leave a child with Tony.
Tony's not the one for that. The pool need cleaning.
But no, seriously, I do want to know, how has your perspective on queer lesbian life changed after becoming a new parent?
Yeah, so a few things. So first, I identify as queer, not as a lesbian,
Yes.
lots of your friends you were talking about. I think that there's a ton of reasons that I do that, and we could talk about that later. I feel like that's a whole other episode. But so I identify as queer, and what's my experience been like? It's been crazy. So I am about 2 years at Google, and one of the most mind-blowing benefits of working in big tech is access to incredible perks and benefits. And so at Google, we have some really first-in-class like fertility benefits. And so as a queer woman, becoming a parent has been wild, but also as a Black woman from the American South who's, kind of transitioning, class stuff happening in my life. My transition to motherhood has just been absolutely bananas to me because of just where at my employer and what that means for a bunch of benefits. And so when I think about coalitions, I really think about healthcare a lot now because I've stood side by side with my other Black sisters who are straight in most cases, in some cases queer, on their journey to become mothers, and the toll that it is taking on Black women, that it is so difficult to safely become a mother in America is absolutely mind-boggling. So to know that some of my closest friends have had to go through multiple miscarriages before insurance will cover the next level of intervention for them to safely, get pregnant, stay pregnant, that kind of thing. To not have to deal with any of that at all has really it's done something with the way that I understand systems, inequity, and how do I make sure I have the same enemy as somebody else? Where actually I don't personally have a beef with this system. This shit is actually working out really well for me. But we need to fix this because it's not okay. Yeah. And I feel that way about our healthcare system now. Yeah. The other thing is I also feel acutely aware of how vulnerable women are when they give birth in this country. And it's just a system that, when you have a system that devalues women, it also devalues them as the end user in a system that's about their body. And I just watched that a ton. My wife is a gestational parent. And so there was a ton of just me putting Vaseline on my face and getting ready to go to go to war. When my daughter was born, we thought we were having a home birth. We got transferred to the hospital in the middle of COVID. And my wife's epidural drip was not working properly.
Oh my God.
And they were doing that thing that is textbook. It's represented in many, many studies that the pain of Black and brown folks is not taken seriously by medical professionals, or they're not delivered pain remedies as quickly as their white counterparts. And so I had to fight for my wife to get a second epidural.
Oh my God.
And they had also given her Pitocin. So they're upping her contractions. Wow. Her epidural doesn't work. And I'm basically needing to strategic plan this labor and delivery unit without and so it was crazy. But my daughter's beautiful. She arrived safely. 7 pounds, beautiful baby girl. And since then, figuring out how to parent in the pandemic, also while being queer, has been fascinating. We've only gone into public at a public social services or office kind of situation once. So we went to apply for a passport and we're both standing there, both parents have to go. So you can't abscond the baby to another country. So we're both standing there. The lady has both of our paper. She got all the paperwork in front of her. She's the second person we've seen. The other lady's waved at the queer family, smiled at the baby, goo gaga, blah, blah, blah. This lady goes, looks down, looks up, looks around. We're trying to entertain a baby at a passport office and the first thing in the morning. And then she goes, but where's the dad? And my wife goes, she doesn't have a dad. And I was like, both of her parents are present. You've got everything in front of you that you need. You need us to sign something. I'm the first parent. Christina's the second parent. And that's the first time that I think that I've experienced something that I'm probably going to need to rehearse, get good at over and over again. Right. That happened, but she apologized and she was 12, so it's fine. She learned, she got it. She was like, oh yeah, word. Right. I got all my stuff. Okay, got it. I'm going to finish this. But yes, I'm getting ready for that, but I think it's going to be fine, all things considered.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an adventure.
Well, dope as fuck.
Yeah.
And we are wishing you
Congratulations.
and your wife all the best.
Thank you
and
so
I
much.
can't tell you how much this means for us, for you to come here and have this conversation with us. This is really, it's been quite a learning lesson for, I think, the three of us, me, Damon, and
Absolutely.
It's been amazing
Jordan.
to listen to you.
And so we could talk to you literally. This could be like, we're going to have after beyond the surface level with Fran. But Fran, if there's anything that you want to plug, if it's your Instagram page, if there's anything that's coming up that you're working on that you want to let people know about, we want to allow you to use our platform to do as you will. And if there isn't anything, that's fine too.
Yes, I don't have anything right now, but
Okay.
I'll take a rain check for if I do.
Yeah.
I'd love to come back and tell you all about something exciting that I'm
We would
working
love
on.
to have you back.
That would be great.
Thank you. All right, so that's all the time we have this week. Let's keep the conversation going, though. Let us know your thoughts and questions at surfacelevelpodcast.com. If you're enjoying this discussion, please rate, review, and subscribe. You can stay updated following us on Instagram and YouTube at Surface Level Podcast. And remember, stay curious.